talking about aerifying our home lawns, and joining us is Dr. Justin Moss, Extension Turfgrass Specialist. And Dr. Moss, can you tell us what we need to know about aerifying our home lawns, please?
Sure, it's always fun to go out and poke holes in your lawn, right? And so that's basically what aerification is. You'll hear aerification or aeration, basically the same thing, but yeah, we're just going out in our lawns and we're poking some holes in there to open things up, to let water come through, to let gas exchange happen, to relieve compaction, and to remove thatch, which can be a detrimental layer that can build up right at the surface of your lawn. So we can do all that just through this easy process of aerification.
Because air is important in the soil profile, right? I mean,
That's right.
It's important for the root growth and for...
That's exactly right. You need oxygen down there. Those roots need oxygen. And so that's a good way to allow that to happen, opening things up. And so we can do that through a couple of different techniques, really. And we can use equipment to just poke a hole in the ground and not take any soil out. We call that solid tine aeration or aerification. And then we can also use some hollow tines that will actually go down into the ground and pull soil, remove cores out of the soil, and lay those on top of the yard. And so the nice thing about that is if you do have compaction or if you have thatch that's built up in the grass, you can pull that out and kind of open things up.
Okay.
And then in some cases even, let's say you wanted to maybe bring in some sand or
to top dress it a little.
Yeah, or even some compost to top dress. If you pull those cores out, you can actually fill those back up if you wanted to. For home lawns, that's not a common practice. That's more so for maybe like golf courses and things like that. But I've seen it done in home lawns as well.
So is there a pro and con as to whether you use solid tines or use the hollow tines?
Yeah, for the solid tines are very good because you're just really poking a hole and moving on. And those holes will remain, but you're not removing soil out of the ground. And so there's, if you think about it, if you're going to remove all those soil cores and put them on top of the ground, there's going to be kind of a mess there, especially if it rains or anything. It kind of
looks like you had a flock of geese come through.
Yeah, there's just little soil everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You're actually not moving a lot. You're actually only removing maybe 10% of your lawn when you pull those little cores.
Because it just goes down a couple inches?
Yeah, that's right. And so with the solid tines, it's very good for relieving compaction issues, opening up, let that water and air exchange occur. It's not necessarily as good for the thatch removal, and so if you wanted to get with that, you could look at the hollow tines where you pour the cores out, and so that's also good for relieving the compaction and for thatch reduction. But there's an extra step there in that cleanup step.
Right.
Now some folks just leave those cores right on top and not worry about them. Some companies or folks will kind of drag them and break them up and then just let them basically go back into the ground.
Right.
And then so you have to think about how much labor and how much do you want to put into this. This is a job that can be done by a homeowner if they go and rent equipment at an equipment rental facility, or maybe even easier than that, they could just hire a lawn professional to come out and do this for them. And so for a Bermuda grass lawn like we're in now, probably want to do that in the May through August time period, when the grass is actively growing, because that way when you poke those holes, there's activity going so it can actually grow and recover and fill back in. And that's another nice thing about this, it can actually generate some new root growth for you.
Right.
And so if you do it when the grass is actively growing, that root growth can occur.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how often a homeowner needs to do this, and also just a situation when you might find that you need to do that. How do you know when you need to do this? So
this is something that can be done every 1 to 3 or 4 years, and you could do it less often if you just have kind of a lawn space that you're not really utilizing a lot as far as traffic or kids or pets. But like here's an area of a garden where you have a walkway and it comes to the grass, and so this area is going to get a lot of foot traffic, so more than likely this area right here is going to get a lot of soil compaction built up quite quickly. And so an area like this, you may want to aerate it every year. Okay. Maybe even if it's really bad, if you haven't done it in a long time, you may even want to do it twice the first year and then do it every year thereafter, just to help that. Of course, you want to aerate it, let it recover, fill back in before you aerate it again. But you see areas like this where people walk, and as it spreads out and the people can spread out, maybe the compaction is not as bad, so you don't have to aerate as much.
And is that what we're seeing right here too a little bit? Is the compaction?
It's exactly right. And so when you get a lot of traffic, a lot of people coming through, or pets or what have you, the grass actually starts to die out, and that soil gets very rock hard. And so whenever you try to water it or put fertilizer on it or anything, it just kind of runs off because that surface is so compacted and hard that nothing can get in and nothing can get out.
Right.
And that's where that aerification can really help, and that's what it does well.
And you made a good mention of pets as well. I mean, a lot of times our dogs will run the perimeter of our property or something like that, and that really gets compacted.
That really compacts the soil, and those pets, you know, they get in their habits, right, and they go the same place all the time. And so, yeah, if you have a lot of pets in the backyard, if you have a kennel, something like that, you're going to have to aerate to relieve that soil compaction for sure, or the grass is just going to die out. So there's no perfect grass, there's no perfect condition, and so, you know, we have to just do these basic practices, cultural and mechanical practices throughout the year to help it thrive and grow and have a nice healthy lawn. The other thing is when you're around trees, you know, there may be some hardscapes you have to be careful about, but there's probably going to be roots. And so if you're going with a machine and hammering down in the ground and poking holes, you got to be careful about hitting those roots. For one, it could damage the tree roots, and for two, it could damage your equipment.
Right.
And so that you have to really be careful and think about. And even in this lawn here, you see some flags throughout the yard, and that's just the first thing we got to do is go identify the areas we can't poke holes in.
Right, our irrigation heads.
So this is irrigation heads, and if you poke the hole in the irrigation head, you're going to have a problem.
Yep.
And so we got to flag those out and work around them.
All right. Well, we've got our irrigation marks. Let's get to aerifying our grass.
Okay.
All right.
Hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.